Dark bleatings, everybody. My voice might be a little croaky because I've just finished recording an author interview, which you'll see on Sunday. But I'm back to normal scheduling. I'm really struggling to keep 2 book videos per week going, so I might have to drop back down to the Saturday, but I do really enjoy filming and stuff. But yeah, I'm working my ass off right now, and I've got a whole bunch of extra stuff going on, but I did find time to read, obviously. So the last time I updated you on my Read What You Own challenge was before I went away on holiday a few weeks ago. And now I have more books to tell you about, because I did get to read while I was on holiday, and that was really nice. Although I'm gonna have to apologize to PS Publishing for the state of one of these books, and I can explain. So, Read What You Own challenge. I am trying to read 100 books that I already own, ebooks and paperbacks, before I allow myself to buy any more books. And until the last couple of weeks or so, this was going fine. I haven't bought any books, but I am starting to feel like I'm jonesing for a new book. Like I didn't think that I bought new books very often. So infrequently that whenever a book popped into my mind that I wanted, I just go ahead and order it, because I think, well, I don't treat myself very often to anything. And I'm realizing how often I actually did that now, because every time a book has popped into my head, I've gone, oh no, put it on the wish list for when my Read What You Own challenge is done, and there are quite a lot on there, and it's actually bothering me that I haven't ordered any. And I've read 49 out of 100 books, which for this point of the year, nearly 50 books in, less than 4 full months into a year, is actually a lot of books for me. I've read a lot more than I normally do. So I think that in a way, this challenge is really encouraging me to read the books I have, because I want to buy new books, and I've put a ban on myself. And I've been enjoying a lot. So I'm hoping that the next time I update you, I'll be, on book number 60 or something. So I have 9 books to tell you about today. There are a couple of short story collections in here, and normally I go through every story in a collection when I'm making these videos, but it's making the videos so long, and one of these collections has so many stories in it, so I'm just going to touch on my favourite ones instead. But first up, we have a novel called Self-Storage by Bonansinga, who I'm very excited because I'm going to be speaking to Bonansinga tomorrow, and I'm really thrilled about that. Now, I found Jay because he co-wrote and then wrote on his own several Walking Dead novels. So he co-wrote the first few with Robert Kirkman, and then he went off on his own to write the rest. And those first 5 at least are about the governor before he became the governor, and his rise to becoming the governor and everything. And yeah, and this book is signed because I got it when I met Jay at a Walking Dead convention, which he will not remember that now because it was years ago, but he was extremely nice, and I finally got round to reading it because this is how long it takes me to get round to things on my personal TBR, and I loved it. It was really good. So Self-Storage is about a man who is divorced, and they have a son. They're co-parenting a son. The relationship between him and his wife, his ex-wife, is very contentious, and it is contentious and spiteful and bickery in front of their child, who's young. I think he's 6, and so I felt like I didn't know whose fault this divorce was, because that's not really the point of the book. The point is they are divorced, and they are clearly both very flawed people. And I'm not saying that people who argue in front of their kids are demons or anything, but the way that this one scene is done, I just thought, oh God, they're not even thinking about the fact that this impressionable little kid who loves both of his parents is stood in the room listening to this. So we don't spend much time with the mother, but we're with the dad and son, and he picks him up for the Christmas holidays. It's actually not his turn to have his kid for the holiday, and he had plans to do some drugs. He's a heroin addict, but his ex last minute got invited to go on a cruise with her family. They can't take the son, and I thought that the dynamic was really interesting because when he arrives to pick his kid up, he's high. She knows he's high. She like really nails him for it, for like, how could you have, this day of all days when you're picking your kid up, and blah da 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 da. But she still sends the kid off with him. So I just got a sense that this was a sort of a toxic relationship, and that both of these people are very irresponsible when it comes to their parenting in certain ways. But dad very much loves his son, and so I was always straddling this line between being like really mad at him for getting high before he went to get his kid, and being high while he's looking after his kid, and feeling very sorry for him that he's in the throes of a very serious addiction. And then the story itself is he's making these plans with his kid. The kid's really excited to be with him, and he's got a storage unit. He is an artist, or an illustrator. I can't remember what the exact word is for his job, but he's one of those, and he wants to go pick up some stuff from his storage unit, and they get trapped inside. And obviously it's the holiday, so no one's going to come by, and then things like, you know, how long they might be stuck in there with no one coming for them. You know, there's no battery on his phone, they have no food, there's no water. Also, the guy is going to start going through withdrawal very quickly, because it happens really fast if you're addicted to any sort of opiate. You start feeling withdrawal like, I know, 8 hours after your last hit, if you're quite severely addicted like that. So there's that going on, and also there's some supernatural stuff too. Well, supernatural, or it could all be in your mind. I won't spoil it for you, but it's presented like it could be either or. There is a definitive answer on it, and it's just really tense, and it was a real page turner. I read this in one evening, pretty much, well, I say pretty much, in one sitting. And I mean, the title got more and more genius the further I got into the book, and there's a lot of metaphor, but it's not pretentious, and it's really about a father-son relationship and the uglier side of people that they don't mean to show other people, and trauma, I guess, but it didn't leave me feeling dead inside at the end. It's actually, it's also very much about love to me. So it was just really interesting, and because all I'd read of Jay's writing before was these Walking Dead novels, and that's already a universe that I'm familiar with, and characters, you know, the main character I'd met through the comic books and the show. I just didn't know what to expect with something that was like a complete standalone, and I really loved it, and I will definitely be backtracking through Jay's other solo work now, so I really recommend that. If that sounds interesting to you, I'd pick it up. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Next, this is an ebook. Oh, and I loved this. This is Blood Cypress by Elizabeth Broadbent, who is very quickly becoming one of my favourite authors. I think everything I've read by her so far has been absolutely wonderful, and her writing is great. Completely different type of horror to self-storage, so I've had really good variety the last few weeks. It's a novella about a woman walks into a bar. She sees a woman that's often in the bar, and she's told that this woman always looks sad. She takes her home, they have a little sexy time, it's a little bit intimate, and then this strange lady that she has picked up at the bar starts telling her about her life and why she's sad. And then we go fully into the strange lady's point of view. I forget, and I've forgotten everybody's names. So she's she's telling her story of when she was a sort of bisexual teenager, or gay. She wasn't, I don't think she was sure at the time, if my memory serves, living in the American South in an area that's very bigoted, basically, and she's got very difficult relationships with her family. She has a younger brother who's and their mother doesn't really understand him, and she's a little harsh, so the main character takes care of her little brother a lot, and she has two older brothers, one of which seems to absolutely hate her, and the other one, that relationship is absolutely effed up. But yeah, her home life is really difficult, and then her brother just wanders out of the house one day and goes missing, and she just knows that he's gone to the local swamp. But the thing about the swamp is there's a lot of rumor and sort of like legend about it with the locals. Everyone is too afraid to go there, including the police, who are supposed to be looking for her brother, and they will not go near this swamp. So the story is a lot of, it's a really human story about somebody who's struggling with a lot of different things, but there's a really sort of mystical edge to it that reminded me a little bit of Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, and I was just so hooked and like really hooked into this character that the story was amazing, but I didn't even really care about I mean, I did care about the story, but if the story hadn't been as good as it was, it wouldn't have mattered to me anyway, because the character was so great for me. But yeah, it was just it was dark, and it really was an exploration of somebody having to work their way through a lot of really difficult things, and I just thought it was wonderfully written and a really well told story, and it's just really emotional and poignant, and I just think Elizabeth Broadbent is such a talent. Next, a short story collection by Tim Foley called Tales Nocturnal. I really enjoyed this. So I have had to write a summary because I can't go into every story, otherwise we will be here all day. But you can expect to find a weird closet, weird snow, weird water sightings, creepy car, creepy house. What does my writing say? An odd hitchhiking experience, a scary hotel, an angry, vengeful deer, medical anxiety, and paranoia. So this kind of has it all. My favourite stories in here by far were Deer, which was very strange, but I really, really liked it. It's about a guy who hits a deer and then weird things start happening. And then there's another story called Snowman Frozen, which just had such scary, great horror imagery. I would say that on the horror scale, and I know this is a weird thing to say because horror and what actually scares people is so subjective, it's actually really hard to gauge. For me, this is quite light on the horror. I didn't feel, I mean, I hardly ever feel sort of like outright scared when I'm reading stuff. It's very rare, but I typically felt creeped out or uneasy following each story after I read each story. So if that's the kind of horror that you like and your tastes are similar to mine, I think maybe that's where you would put this too. It's got it has like a kind of contemporary gothic feel to it in terms of the creepiness and the just sort of like uncanny weirdness of a lot of the stories, but I thought it was really creative, and I would definitely read more by that author as well. Right, the next collection, I have to apologise to Janeen and to PS Publishing. So this is Scorpion Girl by Janeen Webb, and it's a short story collection, and this book is just, it probably doesn't look as bad on camera as it does in real life, but basically I took this to Abu Dhabi with me to read on the beach, and it was very hot, and the ink started melting off the inside cover onto my hands, and the glue came unstuck in the pages, and it just basically just melted a bit. But about the book, I really loved it. I really loved it. I wouldn't put this in a horror category, although there is one story in it that I would definitely put into the horror category, but generally for the collection I wouldn't say so. But it didn't matter to me. I so rarely read outside of horror, and I never want to pick anything up outside of horror. I didn't know what kind of collection this was. Thank you very much, PS Publishing, for sending this to me. But it was lovely. It was actually a really nice, refreshing change, and I think maybe every few horror books I might read something that isn't horror as a sort of like palate cleanser, because when you spend so much time in horror stories, most of the time they're in some capacity about somebody struggling through something. But sometimes my brain can go a little dark. So I got some favourites. It was actually really hard to pick favourites because I loved this entire collection so much. Janeen, where have you been all of my life? I really loved this book. So there's a few stories that feature a recurring character called Brunelli. I think that's how you say it. And she's this really amazing, like, kick-ass woman who's she's sort of like trained in combat. I think she was like not secret service, but some sort of secret, not secret, some sort of force. Words are failing me today. I've had to talk a lot already. But yeah, it's just like her getting into these sort of capers where she's hired by somebody for security, or she's figuring out, you know, who's messing with this certain family she works for and things like that. And she's just like a really, really fun character to follow. And she was so cool and just one of my favorite characters I've ever read. And then I would say my 4 favourite stories outside of the Brunelli stories, and again, it was hard to pick. There's one called Fade to Grey, which I suppose you could put this in horror, but this is more of coming to terms with your own mortality kind of story. But this is about a reporter who goes to a hospital because she's investigating a surgeon who has a track record of women dying on his operating table, and then he diagnoses her with something, so she needs surgery from him. And there's some like ghostly elements to this as well, but it was really disturbing and like the stuff of my personal nightmares. There's a scene in there that like freaked me out. And then there's this other one called Future Perfect, which is about an insurance agent that's been like screwed over at his job, and then he gets an offer from this little medical company that would like it would make him so rich. And it was really interesting. It was sort of like a medical sci-fi, but then it kind of turns into something else, and I really loved that. Snakebite, that was so great. That's about a group of eco warriors basically who start sending venomous snakes to people who run, you know, big oil companies, people who were like killing the planet and stuff. And there was a lovely little sort of like karmic metaphor in that. But my favourite story by far, and this was easy for me to pick, was called Mother Diamond, and it's about a woman who goes to care for her mother, who she has a contentious relationship with, just for her last days. But her mother is really clinging on to life, and those days turn into years where this woman has basically given up like the prime years of her life to care for a woman that isn't even nice to her. And then there's some horror that comes from there, and it reminded me a bit of I Miss You Too Much by Sarah Langan, which, as you might already know, was my favourite horror story of last year. It was incredible. It wasn't as scary as that story. It was like kind of a different branch of horror, but it had similar themes, and I really just thought it was wonderful. So overall, I absolutely loved this book, and I would definitely read more from this author regardless of what genre she's writing in. Next, I read Alien Out of the Shadows by Tim Lebbon. So this is a canon alien story, and it's set between the first and the second film, and it's a Ripley story. So I was really intrigued by how that was going to work based on my understanding like of Ripley's journey in the films, but it does. Tim Lebbon, I know, is an enormous Alien fan, and I know that his favourite film of all time is Aliens. So obviously when I realised, because I'm still like, I've been reading Tim for years, but he has such a huge back catalogue that occasionally I come across something that has been out for a long time that I just didn't like, it went under my radar, and this was one of them. But yeah, knowing how much Tim loves Alien, I was really excited to read a story. I think that he really captured Ripley as we know her and love her. Like, she read like the same character that we know, and he did something interesting with it towards the end of the book. But yeah, it's basically a really fun alien caper, you know, xenomorph trouble is afoot and the crew have to deal with it. So it was like a good alien story, but with Tim Lebbon's brilliant character work and whatnot. So yeah, I would recommend that if you're an Alien fan. It was really good, really good fun. Right, the next one is a novel called To Those Willing to Drown by Mark Matthews. This one wasn't really for me, I don't think, but I couldn't. What was really frustrating when I wrote my review of this is that I couldn't really put my finger on why. Like, I can't not recommend it because it was really well written and there are things about it I loved. So we've got dual timelines, so set at this one location, but we've got a story happening in the present and then something that's happening in the past, and we're following both, which I actually love that as a narrative device, and I was really interested to see how like those things were going to marry together towards the end. But basically we have a mysterious lake, some human tragedy and some sadness, creepy whispering creatures, kind of a devil on the shoulder kind of thing, and we've got some religious aspects as well. So this is all of the stuff that I usually really love in a story. And again, there was nothing, I can't pinpoint why I wasn't hooked. I just never felt like picking this book back up once I'd put it down. So I didn't find it moreish, but I can't really criticize. I mean, I don't have any critiques about the writing style or anything, so maybe it was the mood I was in when I read it, but I want to assure people that are interested in this, like, don't be put off reading this based on what I've just said, because I am an island. I've read other reviews of it after I finished it and everyone was loving it, so I think maybe maybe my brain was doing a weird thing that day. 7, The Harvest by Alex Hunter. This is Alex's debut novel, and I liked this one. I didn't love it, but I did like it. I actually thought it was a really good debut, though. It's better than the piece of crap I wrote that I was intending to be my debut that will never see the light of day because it's too shit. But yeah, this is about Tim, a school teacher who, for financial reasons, moves into this old orphanage, and it's kind of like a caretaker deal, like it's really cheap and kind of just like watching the place or whatever. We've got some teenage characters, and so kids are going missing, and the reason I didn't love this story is because while I very much liked Tim, and I liked there are some teenage characters and they end up sort of like joining forces to try and figure out what's going on, and obviously the orphanage comes into play here. Like the people who live locally are a bit like about this orphanage. This is kind of like nosy Parker of a neighbour and stuff. The reason I didn't love this is because it utilizes dreams, and ever since I first said on YouTube that a pet peeve of mine is dreams in horror novels, I just keep having books sent to me that contain dream sequences, and it's not the author's faults. It's not their faults. It's not even like you know, they're doing anything that normally bugs me about like normally I don't like dream sequences if they're just put in there for a scary scene, like a filler scene. Or if they're just being used to like heavily enforce metaphor or the person's psyche. I just think there are more interesting ways to do that than including scenes that actually have no bearing on the actual real life story that's going on. And that, I mean, the dreams very much have bearing here, like they're very significant. It's kind of more of a it reminded me a bit of like the Upside Down from Stranger Things, more kind of like that, but in a dream. They're very significant, but I can't get past my weird pet peeve hang up with it. So that's really not Alex's fault, and I didn't hate the book or anything like that. I did enjoy it. It's just that I hate dream stuff. But overall, I would recommend the book, especially if you don't have this kind of weird hang up that I have. You'd probably really enjoy it. This is very much a me thing. I think I'm getting grumpier about stuff as I get older. I'm just getting very set in my ways. Okay, next, 8, Grey by Ian Rogers. This is my first Ian Rogers read. I really enjoyed it. This is about Grey, who is a sort of odd being who is neither all good nor all bad. God didn't really know where to place him in the grand scheme, but he's brought to Earth by Metatron to find the last human soul which has been stolen from heaven. And the tone of this is sort of like, if you've read Gavin Dillinger's an existential, what's it called? An exploration of existential indifference and a void of confidence, or Goodbye, a novel. If you've read that, that's the kind of tone we're in. If you haven't read that, the nearest thing I can compare it to that I have read is John Dies at the End. But Grey is not in that same sort of bizarro category. It also reminded me a little bit of Mantis by Erica Summers. Slightly different humour, but the same kind of like tongue-in-cheek. So it's a horror story. The people are no longer able to procreate. For some reason, people just aren't able to conceive and have children anymore. And the human souls are finite. There's a finite amount. They're not just reproduced over and over. And there was one left, and it's been stolen. And it was really funny because the souls are like kept in jars in this room in heaven, which I thought was really funny. So we've got this character Grey that's sort of like been charged with finding this soul before the apocalypse happens, basically. And I don't want to like go into too many details, but there are scenes that involve like Grey goes to Las Vegas, and Grey hasn't been on Earth for quite a long time, so it's changed a lot since they were there. And Las Vegas is now entirely run by women, and they do not take kindly to strange men coming in that they don't know, they don't trust them. And it was just really funny. I got kind of a you know, like the escorts in Sin City, like that kind of like feel. That's what it felt like to me. So it was like it was the stakes were really high, but it was a funny twist on the apocalypse. And then it really gut punches you in the end. I was not expecting it. It was like a full, like, not a bait and switch, because it was a very much earned payoff to the story. Like, it was like the natural progression of things, but I just wasn't expecting it. So I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely read more by Ian Rogers as well. And if you're the kind of person that enjoys an apocalypse with like a twist of funny, then you'd probably enjoy this, I think. And then lastly, we have another little novella called Enigma Exposed by Eric Brown and Keith Brooke. And it's about sort of a dystopian world where something has happened, and now everybody lives in these like domed cities, and they never venture outside the domes. But this little group do venture outside the dome. They escape and get out. And they come to realise that everything that they have been taught about the outside world and why they don't go into the outside world has been a lie. It's not true. They were told that the rest of the world is unlivable, the landscape will kill you, and you know, no one can survive outside the walls. And then it just turns out that that is not true at all. So this is sort of like these people sort of discovering the truth about the world, and then the people that they've grown up with as well. And it was, I would say, it's very like horror light, but it certainly has its horror elements, but it's very quiet on the horror front. But it's more just a really tense story about life and truth and everything, and I really enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. I found it a really quick read. And that is it for this Read What You Own challenge. And all I can think about, I'm really enjoying my reading at the moment. I thought that doing this challenge would make me feel pressured to read, and it would like suck the fun out of reading for me, but it's actually really satisfying cutting through such a huge chunk of my unread books without adding more books on. I've been keeping a list of, because I still receive books sometimes, like from Abominable Book Club, for example. I get 3 books a month from them, so I've been adding them to my TBR list, and I've written sectioned blocks of 100 books at a time. So I'm going to finish this challenge, maybe treat myself to a few new books, and then almost immediately start a new challenge after I've treated myself. But I got roughly about 300 unread books, horror books. I haven't included my non-horror and my non-fiction and autobiographies and stuff, but this is my horror list. So I have added everything else has arrived, and so I am about 15% through my total amount of books that have been sitting in my house. And a lot of them, I mean, like self-storage, I've had it here since like I'd read like nearly a decade, I think. So it's been really satisfying to like pick up books that I just bought and never got round to. So I'm really excited about like the possibility of getting, you know, at least halfway through this stack. And if I can just stay disciplined and not go insane when I do treat myself, I want to buy every single thing that George Daniel Lee has written. I want to buy every single thing that Sarah Langan has written. There's a new Tim Lebbon book coming out this year that I need to get. There will be a new Adam Neville at some point. Maybe not this year, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I also Dan Howarth has a book, he's in an anthology that's coming out, so there's like a whole bunch of stuff that I really want to get. But I think that if I limit myself to like 3 new books when I treat myself, and I will just carefully pick them, I think that'll tide me over through my next challenge. So I hope you enjoyed this update. I really enjoyed reading these books. I've had a really good few weeks of books. I look forward to giving you another one, hopefully next week, but we'll see. It might be the week after because I like to do a bunch of books in one go. I'm going to do a horror movie DVD shelf tour on Saturday that I'm excited about. I was looking at my shelves and I thought maybe you guys can point me in a direction for some other stuff I might like based on what I currently own. I'm getting harder and harder to entertain with new horror films. I don't know if this is me being grumpy and old, as I stated earlier, but I just find that I don't like most new stuff that's coming out, so I would really love some recommendations from like-minded people who might see a gap in my collection, and from any decade. It doesn't have to be something new. But yeah, I'm gonna do that. So tomorrow we'll have a gaming video. Saturday I'm doing my horror movie bookshelf, horror movie DVD shelf tour, and then on Sunday we will have an author interview with Dan Howarth. I'm really excited to get that to you. I hope that you have a really great weekend, and I will see you tomorrow. Bleed!